Good morning and welcome to another of our FME educational webinars. This time our focus is on FME Desktop and how we can use parameters to manage our workspaces. So making them easier to reuse and making them easier for others to use also. My name's Mary Lester. I'm one of the consultants within the FME division here at One Spatial. And I'm joined this morning by my colleague Bethany, who introduced us, and will be monitoring the live chat as she mentioned. So to start, a little background on ourselves here at One Spatial. We're a spatial solutions provider with offices across the globe. Our headquarters are here in the UK, in Cambridge. And we build software that helps our customers manage their data quality. We also work with a number of technology partners, and the one we're interested in here today is our platinum partnership with Safe Software, and they're the makers of the FME platform. Safe are based in Vancouver in Canada, and we're a reseller partner in the UK, Australia, France and the US. And we've got experts also in Ireland, Belgium and Tunisia. Excuse me. As a business, we focus our attention on three core vertical markets: so government, utilities and transportation, with dedicated solutions in each of these. But we find that because FME enables data connectivity to all sorts of locations, databases and APIs, almost any sector can get value from FME. And these are just some of the companies leveraging the power of FME with us. So what are parameters? Well, parameters are controls that define how FME operates. So how a reader reads the data, how a transformer transforms it, how a writer writes it. Almost every component in FME has parameters or controls of one type or another. Every transformer, every reader and writer, even things like the log file. And this gives us an enormous amount of control over the processes we build. Every parameter, and here I've screenshot just a few examples, has the potential to be configured by us. So we can change the values we choose each time we run the workspace. It's kind of mind-blowing, really. And actually, well, a lot of the time, we don't actually want to change those values. Often, the default values are exactly what we need. So, for example, logging a maximum of 200 features, that's usually just fine for what we need to do. But sometimes changing values can be really helpful. So something like the buffer distance. Being able to change that value each time we run the workspace might be really useful and make our workspace more generic, easier to reuse, and easier for others to use too. So let's have a quick look at the different types of parameters we've got, and then we'll jump over to FME and look at them directly. Parameters can be distinguished by their coloured icon. So FME parameters are green. They can be accessed in FME Workbench only, and they're for the workspace author, the technical user, to use. User parameters are a pinky purple colour. They're created by the workspace author for other users to use. So the author, the technical user, configures them in FME Workbench, but the end user interacts with them through a user input form, and so controls a particular run of a translation. And I guess for many of us, it's these user parameters that we think of when we talk about parameters. Those that the user has the power to control. And finally, we have workspace parameters, the yellow ones. Again, these are only accessible through FME Workbench, and they control some of the other translation components, let's say. So, in very general terms, you can kind of think of them more or less as metadata. So let's jump over to FME and take a closer look. So this is FME Workbench. I've got a very simple workspace. It's reading in some information about tree sites from a CSV file, creating the point geometry and writing them out to an Esri shapefile. Now let's have a look in the navigator window. And we can see there are lots of different FME parameters. It's the green ones in here that have been configured. Let's run the workspace. So if I hit, let's run the workspace. And now you'll notice that I have prompt for user parameters turned on. So it's here on the toolbar, but also of the the menu. So when I go to run it, I get prompted for any user parameters, so the purple ones, FME parameters that have been published for users to enter values for. So we get the source and the destination locations, and these are always published by default, actually. So the user at runtime can choose which CSV file to read and where to write the output shapefile. And we'll notice, if we look at these in the navigation window, that these are actually coloured purple. So they're user parameters, and the user gets prompted to set the value. And just one final thing to point out is that you do actually here have the option to save those values as the default values, and that can be helpful sometimes, depending on the scenario. Okay, now let's imagine that we want to use our site locations with a GPS. So we would need to reproject the data to a lat long coordinate system. So let's set the shapefile coordinate system to WGS84. And now every time it's run, the data will be in lat long. So if we go into the shapefile system and set this to WGS84, let's run it again. And our data this time will be in lat long. Okay. So let's say though, or if we wanted the choice of coordinate system every time we run it. So we could make this a user parameter. And to do this, we'll go into the navigation window, right click on that parameter and create a user parameter. We've got some values here, but let's go with the defaults. It's okay. And now when I go to run that workspace, I now get prompted to choose the coordinate reference system. So I can choose lat long, British National Grid. I can choose from the full selection of coordinate systems, and it will reproject the data on the router. So now we've got 3 user parameters. And they can be a little tricky to find, in fact, here in the navigation window. So very helpfully, they're also stored here in or grouped, let's say, together in the user parameter section here in the navigation window. In fact, this is typically where we manage our user parameters. So if you right click here, I get the option to manage our parameters, and we've got the parameter management window. So in here we can do everything we need to do around our parameters. So I can change the order that these are going to appear on the form. I can alter maybe the name here, so let's call this maybe shorten the displayed text to this. The output one I might rename to output shapefile, alter the name to something like this. Okay, and all the changes that I make here are reflected on that input user input form when I go to run my workspace. So let's have a look at this, what else we can do in the management window. So we can add and create more parameters. And you can see there's lots and lots of different options. We're just going to have a look today at a couple of the most common. So a number, let's ask the user to select sites based on the number of trees that have been planted. So we need a number parameter. I'm going to call it site threshold. It's going to have some descriptive text asking the user to select sites with more than a certain number of trees. It's published. Yes, so that means the user gets to choose it at runtime. It'll appear on the input form, so that's usually what we want. It's required. I've ticked that as yes, so that means the user must provide a value. Again, it's usually what we want. And then I'm going to configure the parameter here. So I'm going to set a lower limit of, let's say, greater than 0, and an upper limit of, and then I've got different options. So I'm going to use integers, specify an integer, and just for fun, I'm going to tick the option to use a range slider. So let's try that out. So let's now go and rerun our workspace, and there's our new parameter, and we can choose the numbers based on the slider, which is kind of cool. So let's run that. Just because it's open. Let's run that and have a look. Oh, so nothing seems to have happened. We have the same number of features being output, okay? And this is something to watch out for. So we've created our user parameter, but actually it's not in use anywhere in our workspace. So let's have a look in the navigator window. And we've got an option for the parameters to show references. So let's look at the references for site threshold, and we can see that there's none, it's not being used. So we need to use a transformer or use something to use that parameter. So let's add a tester transformer. And instead of the data going into the writer, I'm going to hook this up to the tester. And then I'm going to check that the number of trees is greater than the user parameter. So here you can see off the drop-down list I can choose user parameters directly, and let's choose our site threshold. And just to point out, this is how parameters are identified. So they're prefixed with the $, and then round brackets random. Okay, so I'll hook that back up. And now when I go to run my workspace and choose a site threshold, now we can see that we're getting just the subset of data that we're interested in, that we've requested. So yeah, great. Right, so let's look at another example. Another example of parameters, a choice parameter. So let's say we want the user to choose, well, which file format to output. Now, do they want an Esri shapefile or a mapinfo tab file, for example? So we're going to parameter a name. Again, we're going to leave it published card, and I've got some choices. So my tab, P will be the values, but the displayed values will be mapinfo tab file. So alias names, if you like, and Esri shapefile. Let's have a look at our input file. See, I've got those two choice values that I've set up. But like we've just seen, we now need to use that within our workflow. So this time, I'm going to use a parameter fetcher transformer. And a parameter fetcher does exactly that. Its role or its use is to go and grab parameters. So let's hook that up. And we can see we've got a full list of available parameters. We have the option then of exposing, let's say, or grabbing the information from multiple parameters here at the one time. So I'm just going to get my output format for now. We're going to add an attribute filter. The parameter fetcher has now got our output format here as an attribute that we can work with. So I'm going to hook up an attribute filter and filter my data based on the output format value. So we have a value either of mi tab or okay, great. So now if my user has chosen a shapefile, I want the output to go up to my shapefile writer. But we've currently got no writer from mapinfo, so I'm going to add a mapinfo writer. Defaults for now, fine. Here's my mapinfo tab output. So if my user chooses mapinfo, then I can output to the mapinfo writer. Okay, so let's run it again. Let's have a look at the form, see what it's looking like. Great, so I can choose, well, which format do I want to write it out to. And there we go. So it's now outputting my data to mapinfo format. But thinking about this, we are choosing a coordinate system here on our input form, but actually it's only working on the shapefile. Okay, we'll go and look at the referenced places, the references for that parameter. It's only the shapefile that is using that information, that's reprojecting the data. So what we really want is for that action, that choice, to be applied to both the shapefile and the tab file. So let's link to it from the tab writer. So if we go into the tab writer, we'll see that's also got a coordinate system parameter, and this time we can choose to link to an existing user parameter. So now if I go to run, now if we go to run the workspace and I choose for that long coordinate system, that will be applied to both the map info tab and the Esri shapefile writer. And that's great, really, so we can share user parameters and reuse parameters multiple times within our workflow, which is really useful. Now, one difference with map info tab files is that they store style information. So let's add some additional processing for map info files. So let's add a color picker parameter. So let's go into our user parameters. Let's add a color picker. We'll just display prompt of choose the output feature color, and then we're going to add a transformer called the feature color setter, and that will allow us to set colors on features. So I'm hooking it up just to the map info flow of data. Here I'm going to set the color information. So rather than choose a color, I'm going to set it to use the color parameter, and similarly reuse that same information for the fill color. So now when I get to prompted by the user on my input form, I get asked to, in addition to everything else, choose a color that I want for my output features. And so just another parameter, more options that we can choose, and it's the same process that was shown already. So you build a parameter and then you apply it, or you build the logic and publish the parameter. So now the user can choose which color they want the map info data to display with. But actually, if we think about it, our form now is actually a little bit misleading, I feel. So the user is choosing a color here, but it can only ever be applied if they choose map info format here. So we don't have an option on the form configuration to hide the color option depending on the format that's been chosen. And conditional parameters are something that's planned for the future. So keep an eye out for that in future releases. I think it'll be a really great enhancement. For now, however, we've got to manage it through the text that we display. So at the moment, we could do something like choose the output feature color, something like for map info, something like that. So at least it's displayed on the input form so that the user is aware. Yes, and just a final example really of parameters. I think we've shown you lots of different options. I'm using this time a workspace parameter, so one of the yellow icons down here. Let's use some Python to customize a workspace log file so that each time it's run, the workspace adds a timestamp to the log file name. So this means the log files are stored from each run. They're not getting overwritten, which can be really helpful for auditing and debugging our data processing. Okay, so let's manage the user parameter window, and this time let's add a scripted parameter. Call it log file, because it's going to set the log file value for us, and I'll copy in some Python that will do the trick. Log file for us. So again, like before, we've now created the parameter. We just need to apply it. So we're going to apply it to the log file parameter here, one of the yellow workspace parameters. I'm going to right click and link to user parameter, choose the log file from here, and we can see it's linked and picking up that value. So now every time I run the workspace, I'll get my log file, but it will be written out with a different name, so a timestamp named log file each time. So yeah, that can be really useful. So I know it's a very simple and contrived example really for today. I'm just trying to show you, different types of parameters and their uses and benefits, but hopefully you can see that you can build the user input form into something quite complex, and then deal with the values chosen within your workflow. And so while this is a simple example, it's a very powerful concept. The same workspace here can be run from the FME Quick Translator. So if you're not aware of it, the FME Quick Translator is a cut down version of FME, and it's really useful if you have users that just need to run something and they don't need to see or understand the workspace and all the complexity of your workflow that you see in Workbench. They can just come in here, choose your workspace, and they'll get the same user input form from all the parameters that you've created, and just run it, and that's it. It runs the translation. When you run the translation in Workbench, if you notice at the top of the log, it gives you the command line to run the workspace, and all of the parameters are defined and configured. So you can use this to run your workspaces using a batch file on command line or on something like Windows Scheduler, and make your processing completely hands-free. That could be really powerful. And when you run the same workspace in FME Server, so let's have a look. We can publish this up to server. I'll just publish it against the job submitter service. So if we now go into Windows Server, choose the workspace. But I can see here I've got the same set of parameters, so the same user input form, if you like, is being presented here in FME Server, so people can access it from FME Server or from some other web page that calls this. So it's an extremely powerful concept. User parameters make our processing dynamic, reusable, and just generally easier to use. So that's it really for the demo side of things. Just to finish up really, It's a bit of a recap. I think we've seen that parameters give us great flexibility and control. We've looked at options for all three groupings: the FME parameters, the user parameters, and the workspace parameters. So where to next, really, or where can you get some help? Well, please feel free to get in touch to find out more about this topic or anything else FME related. If you'd like to do a little of your own research first, or maybe you're already a user and you want to brush up on your skills, then do take a look at our website, find out about what training we offer, what other webinars and events are coming up, or dig into some of the material that we have on our on-demand pages on onespatial.com. So you can just follow these short URLs here to get a little more detail, or reach out to us at FME at onespatial.com for any help or quotation or whatever. Additionally, another URL to look at is community.safe.com, because that's where all the tutorials and how-to articles are located, including the chat forum where you can ask thousands of FME users what their experience is with whatever specific challenges you might have. If you're already a customer of ours, though, on active maintenance and support, then you can access our priority support service via support@onespatial.com. If you're not sure what your current status is, just drop us a note either now on the chat or after the session, and we'll let you know what you're entitled to. And finally, just a reminder that registrations are now open for our 6th annual Smarter Data, Smarter World conference. That's on in London at the Royal Institution of Great Britain, and that's on November the 10th. So it brings together hundreds of geospatial experts, and our theme for this year is building and sustaining your data foundations. It's free to attend, but remember you do need to register. So if you're interested, please visit the conference page to register. You can get to it from our on-demand website, and our post-webinar email will also include the registration form. And we look forward to hopefully seeing you there. So there we go, that's it for today. For more information on parameters or anything else really to do with FME or data, please do get in touch. We'd love to hear from you, and remember, keep an eye on upcoming news and events on our website. Thank you very much for your time.